Recently, I was talking to a friend who was having some challenges at work around a coworker, and I really just listening to their concerns and their frustrations and hearing how hard it was, and decided to really approach my role as with a lot of patience, just kind of listening and recognizing how hard their situation sounded. Unfortunately, it didn't seem to kind of land with my friend, and it looked like they maybe were expecting some more. So I kind of scrapped the patience approach, and I thought to myself, maybe what she's looking for is more of a push. Maybe they're looking for some advice instead of just a listening ear. So instead, I said, you know what? This is what you need to do. You need to go in there tomorrow, and this is what you need to say to that person. And that didn't end up going well either. And my friend got a little bit defensive and upset. And as I was reflecting on this experience, I was just recognizing this tension between these two approaches, patience and push, and started to see them as two sides of ways that we can support someone in our lives. And really, when we think about supporting someone, and thinking about this tension between patience and push, we can kind of conceptualize it as a balance. And striking a balance between patience and push in a way that we can make sort of subtle adjustments to, like turning a dial across different settings. And these two approaches are opposites, right? So patience sort of requires us to wait and listen, push expects us to be a little bit more active and do something and say something and guide. And both are good. Patience shows understanding and compassion, and push provides some guidance and some maybe helpful next steps. But also, the extremes can be kind of bad. All patience without any push can lead to people feeling like you're not actually helping them and they're looking for some help. And by the same token, too much push without any patience can just come across as pushy, and people can be really defensive and get upset and feel judged. So that's not always great. But these two can coexist. You can actually push with varying levels of patience, and you can be patient while offering a little bit of a push. And so the key is to figure out what's best for the situation and what's going to resonate most and what's most expected and helpful for the person you're supporting. Myself, my tendency or my default mode is to be patient and listen and validate. And that's what I did with my friend. I listened and validated and maybe just offered a little bit of perspective. And like I mentioned, that didn't go over well. And so I kind of decided in the moment that I would change course a little bit and I would try to offer a push. But instead, I maybe went too far. And by giving this definitive advice really insistently, that maybe is what led to my friend feeling really upset. So I probably pushed too far, and it's a matter of finding the sweet spot here. And so my third calibration was to go back to still being patient and listening and validating, but also providing just a little bit of guidance. And so a little bit later in the conversation, I said, that does sound really tough. I can understand this is really aggravating. You know what I might do in a situation like that? Have you ever thought about you could consider? And that went much better. And my friend was much more receptive to sort of hearing hypotheticals. Now, in future situations with other people in other contexts, there's lots of different needs for balancing patience and push. Working with, supporting maybe a sibling who's just stuck and desperate and is looking for some guidance, they might need that push. If you're working with a colleague who's struggling with something, maybe they could offer, you could offer some perspective. If you're a teacher or a parent supporting a student or a child going through a hard time, maybe they just need a listening ear. And even that same friend that I mentioned earlier, in a different situation the next time around, maybe that same person in a different context will need more of a push. It's all about recognizing that each person and situation and context requires kind of like a different approach, and that there are these different calibrations to finding the response that may be best for each. Therein lies the balance challenge. And hopefully just knowing about this range of approaches may help us to be more intentional about our decisions when we're supporting someone, because we have an awareness of the sort of range of approaches that we can take. And also, hopefully, it can allow us to have some more understanding and some compassion when we're kind of thrown off course, when people use a different approach that doesn't feel so great with us.